Felt that in my heart. Hi, Mom. When I was 11, and had been outside playing, I never wanted to come in. I'd have to come in to eat or something. You know, I wanted to be outside playing the whole day. And one day when I came in from playing, she quoted to me a Bible verse. It was Matthew 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called children of God. And she told me I was a peacemaker because I was always facilitating peace among the kids when they had disagreements. Well, I had never planned on being a peacemaker. I'm not even sure at that time I had heard the term peacemaker. Maybe I had, but not really too aware of it. And I don't ever remember her even teaching me to be a peacemaker. I just kind of did what came naturally for me. And yet I always remembered that. As an adult, when I was in my 40s, I had an intuitive reading. And this intuitive reader, a woman, I don't remember who it was, told me that I was a peacemaker in this lifetime because I had been the cause of many wars in previous lifetimes. Never thought about that. So if you believe in karma, I guess that maybe I came back this time to resolve some karma from past lifetimes. But anyway, and she didn't know anything about my mom calling me a peacemaker. So, and one of the early times I came to speak here at Unity of Albany was April the 3rd, 1994, which was over 25 years ago. I had my picture taken out here by the Peace Pole with Deborah's uncle and your dad. And one day I found that picture, maybe about 5 years ago, I don't know, and brought it here to church. And I didn't even realize who they were, I even remembered her from that time, that particular day. But that was who they were, and I posted it on your Facebook page for Unity of Albany yesterday, so you can see that. But and I remembered, and I thought it was unusual that in the 28 years that I've been speaking at Unity churches, and also had a big focus on peace, that I had only had one entire talk focusing on peace once. And that was in November the 3rd, 2013, and that was actually a glorious request that I speak on peace. So I thought, wow, in all those years I've only spoken on it once. And so a few days ago, I was inspired to have that be the topic of my talk today. And I think that's coming out of the work I'm doing, the volunteer work I'm doing with teens in Tallahassee in the Community Connections class, where the teens are learning nonviolent communication, and they're learning that there's another way to deal with the violence that many of them face every day at home, at school, with friends and everything. And so I am just learning what a difference nonviolent communication can make in creating peace within us, creating peace among us, which then spreads out and creates peace in our family, in our community, in our country, and in the world. And some of the NVC is a short name for nonviolent communication, but some of the things, the basics in there, include learning to get in touch with our own feelings and needs, learning to get in touch with the feelings and needs of other people, also learning to tell the difference between feelings and thoughts. A lot of times we have thoughts that we think are feelings, but they're not. They're thoughts that might cause some feelings. And then also learning the difference between observations and judgments. Humans make judgments right and left, thinking that that's the truth, but it's really their opinion and it's a judgment. And human beings have been so conditioned to stuff feelings, to hide them from themselves, feelings they don't want to feel, but that they think are bad to feel. And they stuff them. Or they're conditioned not to talk about their feelings so they can hide them from other people. I didn't learn that it was okay to talk about my feelings until in my first marriage I went through some marital counseling, and I learned, wow, it's healthy to talk about feelings. Because my mom and dad never talked about stuff like that. You know, that was private family business. You didn't talk about it. So sometimes we aren't even aware of what we're feeling and what we're needing. In the class, we have a whole page of lists of all these different feelings, and you flip it on the other side, and this list of all these universal human needs, just so people can look at that and start to learn to identify their own feelings and needs. Marshall Rosenberg was the person who developed nonviolent communication, and he wrote a book by that title. And he said, every criticism, judgment, diagnosis, and expression of anger is the tragic expression of an unmet need. So we've got people all over walking around with unmet needs that they aren't even aware of sometimes, and they certainly, other people aren't aware of them, and they act in certain ways, and people make judgments, and then there are misunderstandings, and then people start fighting, and it just gets all crazy, kind of a vicious cycle. And we've long been conditioned as humans to make judgments and assumptions without checking out their validity. And then we impulsively act on those judgments and assumptions, believing they're the truth. How many of you have read the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz? Yeah, remember one of those agreements is don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. And I'm also reminded of what a long ago teacher of mine, a gentleman named Lou Tice, said and taught me. He said, we act not in accordance with the truth, but with the truth as we believe it to be. The truth as we believe it to be. And the truth as we believe it to be is often a story that we've just made up. You know, not even realizing that it's a story we made up. And without checking it out. In Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 and 2, Jesus said, judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce will you be judged, and with the measure you use it will be measured to you. And also in John 7, verse 24, he said, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Now, nonviolent communication teaches the difference between values judgments and moralistic judgments, and saying that the moralistic judgments are the ones that can often cause harm to yourself and to others. They're the right or wrong, bad or good kind of judgments. And to me, when Jesus speaks about righteous judgment, I think of discernment. And I looked up the difference between discernment and judgment on Google. And I found one that I really resonated with. It was a person that I've never heard of before. Her name is Alika Thorvaldsen. She's a holistic life strategies coach, and I love the way she describes the differences. She says discernment is an inner knowing sourced in truth. Judgment is sourced in fear. Discernment is a spark of intuitive knowing and inner voice of certainty that aligns us with our path, purpose, and inspiration. Judgment is about control and uses fear and manipulation to get this control, to try to get this control. It doesn't always work so well. Discernment shares power. It allows your opinions to be valuable, even if the two of us disagree. Your opinions are still valuable. Judgment uses black or white thinking, words like always, never, and everyone, to create an era of expertise without doing any fact checking. Discernment says, I am the expert on what works for me. Judgment says, I am the expert on just about everything. Discernment constructs. Judgment deconstructs. Discernment uses truth to inspire truth. It offers wisdom in discord, allowing both sides to understand each other and thus to grow. Judgment tears down systems because it is based in being right, which means another person has to be wrong. Discernment is sourced in assertion, accountability, and honesty, while judgment is sourced in aggression, blame, shame, prejudice, racism, and stereotyping. One takes responsibility while the other passes it off by projecting shadows, its own shadows. Discernment is responsive, while judgment is reactive. Reactive thinking, based in fear, recreates the past over and over and over again. Responsive thinking opens us up to new possibilities, new ways of seeing, new ways of thinking. And she says, having a discerning opinion is kind of like you walk into someone's house and you think to yourself, you don't really like the decor, but it's because it just is not your taste. It's just not your taste. Now, if you're a judging person, you'd come in and not like the decor and think in your own mind, kind of putting this other person down for being a really tacky decorator, not knowing what's going on, because it didn't match what you like, you know. So I like that description of the difference there. Discernment is valuable, because if we live our lives without discernment, it's kind of like a sailing boat without a rudder. You're going to get somewhere, but it may not be where you want to go. You're just not sure where it's going to be. You're just all over the place. Judgment closes our world so we can only move in one direction, even if that direction is unhealthy or not good for us. And we live in a nation of differing opinions. And opinions are plentiful, right? Lines have been drawn in the sand. People have taken sides. Everyone's giving out opinions everywhere. They're all over social media. They're in the news media, all among families and friends and strangers. Opinions, opinions, opinions. Differing opinions aren't necessarily a negative thing, because contrast is how we learn and grow and expand and go farther than we've ever been before. But when opinions start leaning into that area of judgment, they can lead into separation and estrangement and dismantling. And then there are some that deliberately spread what maybe is being called fake news today in order to stir things up and get people against each other for their own personal gain. And NBC is about compassionately creating connection. It's about coming from our hearts. It's about finding a peaceful way to deal with conflict and discord. A peaceful way. It models power with or power sharing instead of power over. Marshall Rosenberg wrote another book entitled Speak Peace in a World of Conflict. What you say next will change your world. And in Unity we know the power of words, don't we? The power of our thoughts, the power of our words. So what you say next will change your world. In that book he said, with regard to people who have done things we call terrorism, got a lot of that going on today, I'm confident they have been expressing their pain in many different ways for 30 years or more. Instead of our empathically receiving it when they expressed it in much gentler ways, they were trying to tell us how hurt they felt that some of their most sacred needs were not being respected by the way we were trying to meet our economic and military needs. So they got progressively more agitated, more hurt, more bothered. Finally, they got so agitated it took a horrible form. So in today's world, this statement ought to wake us up to the need for and value of practicing something like nonviolent communication. And in that same book, Rosenberg said, peace requires something far more difficult than revenge or merely turning the other cheek. It requires empathizing with the fears and unmet needs that provide the impetus for people to attack each other. Being aware of these feelings and needs, people lose their desire to attack because they can see the human ignorance, the unconsciousness, the unawareness leading to those attacks. Instead, their goal becomes providing the empathic connection and education that will enable them to transcend their violence and engage in cooperative relationships. And when he talks about it, something far more difficult, I can understand that. I took a weekend, 2-day nonviolent communication workshop about 5 years ago, and I didn't really like it that much. It seemed awkward. It was complicated to me. And when I left, I didn't really practice what was taught in that weekend. One, I couldn't remember it all. And two, it felt complicated and hard, and I'm into ease, So, and a weekend is really nothing more than an introduction. And it takes a long time to overcome a lifetime of conditioning and to see blind spots, things that we're totally blind to. Think we see, but we've got these blind spots. But you know what? It was a start for me, and it planted a seed. And it took me a while. It took me a move across town in order to get really involved in this volunteer work. I used to be volunteering in that program, but I would just do the interview circles when the students came into the program and the exit interview circles when they went out. I said, I don't have time to drive 30 minutes across town 2 nights a week to do all this. But then God had me move across town, and then had one of the students in the program who lived really close to me who needed a ride to the program. I said, well, if I'm going to give her a ride every time, then I might as well go. And so now I'm in my 4th cycle of 16 weeks of this kind of class. And it's 32 classes, and in these 32 classes, the students, who most of them are mandated to come through a court order, or they may be on probation. More and more of them now are becoming voluntarily coming there. But in that time, they're immersed into this, and they have time to learn it, to practice it with each other, with their families. A lot of them are going home and trying to teach their parents or their brothers and sisters this stuff. It's really cute. And I also have time, because I see them in the beginning and I see them in the end when they come in as hostages and they come out. I see miracles occur. I see transitions made. I see kids who didn't know any other way of fighting, to now have a tool, a way to deal with all this. And it's just so inspiring to me. I can't not do this volunteer work anymore. I must do it. And we humans are so often just at odds within ourselves, aren't we? And because we're at odds within ourselves and with ourselves, then we're at odds with everything out there. Odds. So I always like to go to Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, and go in the Revealing Word and look up words. So I looked up peace, and I looked up peacemaker, and I'm going to share those with you and see if you notice anything unusual about these two definitions, maybe. Peace. Harmony and tranquility derived from awareness of the Christ consciousness. Awareness of the Christ consciousness. Steadfast affirmations of peace will harmonize the whole body structure and open the way to attainment of health conditions in mind and body. Open the way to health conditions in mind and body. Instead of taking medicine, instead of doing all these other things, we can just practice on our inner peace, right? The road to health in mind and body. And so many of these people doing these mass shootings are definitely not healthy in mind and often not healthy in body. Until world peace is based on the divine law of love, and this law incorporated into the pact of peace, as well into the minds of those who sign the pact, there will be no permanent peace. So it's got to be in the minds of those who sign the pact. And then peacemaker, one who has the ability to say peace to the turbulent waves of thought and have them obey. Who's recently experienced turbulent waves of thought? I did in the middle of the night last night, around 3 o'clock. Wee hours of the morning. A peacemaker is one who reduces to peace and harmony all the thoughts of strife, anger, and retaliation in his or her own mind. The ability to say peace to thoughts and have them obey entitles man to sonship, woman to daughtership of the Most High. So I don't know what you noticed about those definitions, but I noticed that in Fillmore's definitions that he believes peace is an individual inner process, right? And until it's there in each of us, it's not out there, is it? To a great extent. It took me a while to learn that the best way to be a peacemaker was to first find it within me, not find it, create it within me. Create it within me. And once I do that, then being at peace with everything outside of me is just a natural side effect. I don't have to try to do that. It just happens. It's like icing on the cake. Peace is an inside job, and it is contagious. It's a daily practice for me to watch my thoughts, and it takes that awareness, like Linda had us all be aware this morning. Be conscious. Listen. Daily Word says listen. Another thing we teach in nonviolent communication is really be present with and listen to the other person. The other person. And so I daily remember to be aware of my thoughts and then to choose thoughts. When I think unpeaceful thoughts or feeling unpeaceful, to choose thoughts of peace, harmony, and love. And one time when I spoke at Unity of Tallahassee, I had a woman come up to me afterwards and tell me that I had Valium vibrations. And she said that was because whenever she heard me speak, she felt so calm and peaceful. Wow. But I can remember that. It's empowering to me to remember that statement when I'm not feeling so calm and peaceful, which I've had many times of this past month. To me, it was a weird month. Maybe it was for a lot of people. I don't know. Weird in different times. But I can bring that into me and feel that, remember that time. But my peace is found in being loving and kind and gentle to myself. When I'm not feeling peaceful, when I'm not able to shift, and what I'll do is put my hand on my heart, say, I love this person who's not feeling so peaceful now and can't seem to shift. I love this person. And that in itself just kind of shifts me. Ringo Starr knew that peace begins with the individual. He said, I have this incredible dream that one day, 1 minute, the whole world at the same time will decide it's time for peace and love. So I just do my part, and I think that's all you can do. I'm not telling anyone else what to do. I do this, and that's the end of my story. And Mother Teresa knew that we achieve peace by focusing on peace, focusing our attention, our energy on peace, not on what we don't want. And the story is that when she was invited to an anti-war rally, she says, I will not attend an anti-war rally. If you have a peace rally, invite me, I will come. So experiencing and realizing peace is about coming from love. Jimi Hendrix said, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. I remember a time in my life when I thought, if my life was too peaceful, it would be really boring. I don't know if you've ever thought that, but that was a scary thought to me. I don't want to live a boring life. But I found a quote, and I never have really found who ever said this, who originated it, but that quote helped me shift that thought. And the quote was, peace is joy sitting down. Joy is peace standing up. And I realized that peace and joy are just part of the same wonderful energy, that of source, that of God, that of divinity, that of love. And I can live a wonderfully adventurous, exciting life and still be at peace. And it's really rare nowadays for me to feel boredom. It's just not something that I ever feel. There's so much that's exciting and wonderful in life. And I am, through practice, like I said, it's a daily practice through me, but it pays off. But I am, through practice, learning to stay more and more peaceful in the calm of all the chaos that's going on out here. Lesson 34 in A Course in Miracles can help when you are feeling not so peaceful. That lesson says, I could see peace instead of this. When I say that to myself, it says, I could see peace, instead of this. And when I say that to myself, what it reminds me of is peace is a choice. It's a choice. I choose it. I'm the chooser. You're the chooser. We can all choose it. And we felt it before, so all we need to do is bring the memory of that feeling right back into our body, and it's in the present moment. And the Course goes on to say, this idea begins to describe the conditions that prevail in the other way of seeing. Peace of mind is clearly an internal matter. It must begin with your own thoughts and then extend outward. It is from your peace of mind that a peaceful perception of the world arises. And then the practice in that lesson, this is what the practice tells the student of the lesson to do. Search your mind for fear thoughts, anxiety-provoking situations, offending personalities or events, or anything else about which you are harboring unloving thoughts. Note them all casually. I'll add without judgment. Repeating the idea for today slowly. I can see peace instead of this. As you watch them arise in your mind, and let each one go to be replaced by the next. You can also use the statement, I could see peace in this situation instead of what I see in it now. And if the disturbances to your peace of mind take the form of lower vibrational feelings, not bad feelings, not really negative feelings, but lower frequency, lower vibrational feelings, such as depression, anxiety, or worry, it may help you to tell yourself this. I can replace my feelings of depression, anxiety, or worry, or anything else, you fill in the blanks, with peace. And if I still have difficulty shifting, which sometimes I do, then it's my time to let go and let God. And I just put that hand back in my heart and say, I love this person who's having a hard time shifting here, so God, it's all yours. And I hand it over, hand it over. And say, thank you for your grace in this situation. And just the simple act of doing that, again, brings me to a more peaceful space. So as we are all on this journey of remembering who we really are and living by that, through that, it is through our alignment with Source, with God, with love, that we can free ourselves to experience peace within us and peace all around us. And that's when we can truly say, peace has begun with me, or peace begins with me. So as we sing the peace song today, at the end of our service, I ask you, as Linda did, to become aware, to be conscious, to be mindful, and just instead of singing it by rote, to think about each word you sing and feel it. Feel it. And then